Good evening, everyone. James on deck. It's all about Gordon. Welcome to the BroDiallo broadcast. It's been a long time since I left you with our Pan-African perspective to step two. I'm so happy to be back. I missed y'all, man. You don't know, man. Hard times, BroDiallo. But I'm so happy to be back. My absence, my family and I, well, not my entire family, but my wife and two sons, we went to Uruguay, Montevideo in Uruguay, and then we went to Panama City and caught a little charter van out of Panama City out into the forest. So we've been doing things, So I've been, international player with a passport. As Ice-T said, I got to leave the damn country just to have some fun. Anyway, it was good times. Unfortunately, the rumors are not true. You cannot get a passport, go overseas, and find some submissive, exotic woman who will pander to all of your desires and needs. I tried it, and I came back with the same woman I left with. So, the passport bros are lying to y'all. I don't know why they running that scheme, but that's what happened to me. So anyway, I did bring some things back. Now, don't expect too much. I'm going to do a little show and tell before we get into the broadcast. Don't expect too much because, like I said, I was there. Shout out to Universidad Uruguay, Montevideo. I don't know the Spanish name, but the university, the National University of Uruguay in Montevideo. Shout out to the people there doing the good work against colonialism, decoloniality, and police brutality. My wife was there presenting, and it was really a good and interesting and enlightening time. Oh, that's probably where I'm fucking up. You can't passport bro with a wife. Yeah, that's probably where I'm messing up, DC. Anyway, I did bring back some things. I didn't really get much from Panama because we were in the rainforest, and my wife, she loves sloths. She really loves sloths. We went to a sloth sanctuary and a sloth rehab center, and we were in the rainforest, sleeping in out in the beautiful. I've never seen greenery like that. And all the sloths that were in the rehab center had healed from broken bones and other ailments, and they released them. So they bring them there, they rehab them, and they release them. So we get there, and they had no sloths. And I'm like, this is good news, because that means there are no sick or injured sloths in the sanctuary, which means they've all been rehabilitated and put it. But my wife was like, nah. And I'm like, don't you go out there and shoot a sloth for nothing, and just so you can see one up close. So we went to the sloth hospital rehabilitation center, and they were empty because they had no patients. So anyway, but I did bring some things back. Now, don't expect much from my souvenirs. These souvenirs mean the world to me, but it ain't no ballerific shit. Okay? So one thing, when we said we were going to Uruguay, my oldest son invited himself along because we don't give our oldest son shit no more. He got to ask for everything, and you'll know it. So we had my oldest son, which I was glad to have him because it's like he don't want to hang out with us like that. He don't kick it with us like that no more. And we can't force him to like we do our youngest. So we told him we headed to Uruguay, and he's like, yo, I'm coming too. And we're like, great. So anyway, the reason he wanted to go because he wanted to go see the fingers in Punta del Este. And so we went there to see the fingers. So this is my first souvenir. I think this was like 250 pesos. This is a sticker of the fingers. And let me tell you something about the fingers in Punta del Este. Thumbs down. It looks nothing like this. It looks nothing like the brochures. Maybe I'll post some pictures to Instagram. It was whack as hell. In my opinion, of course, in my Yankee Doodle opinion. But it wasn't a loss because we were when we went to see the fingers in Uruguay, in Punta del Este outside, they don't look like this. They're much smaller. Like you see the thumb, the thumb came to like right here on me. I was expecting these titanic structure of the hand emerging from the beach. Number one, it ain't on the beach. The photography and imagery is so deceptive on the fingers, but I'm happy to have gone there. It was a sight to see. And to tell you the truth, if you're in Punta del Este, Don't still go to the Fingers, because the Fingers is part of a huge modern sculpture garden, and there are several very interesting sculptures that get no love and no hype because of the Fingers. So the Fingers were a disappointment, but there were other wondrous things. But even better than that, just a short, maybe 10, 15 miles up the road, is the castle, right? And this is a guy I respect, Carlos Perez Valaro. Oh, let me take it out. My wife bought this. We went to his walk-in sculpture, the castle. And this is an artist who does what I think every artist should do. He's an artist. He's passed on, but he lived to like 90. But he was a painter, a sculptor, a craftsman, and even I've seen some films. They even show some films, and our brother Carlos was, Uruguayan conquistador native mix, and he saw the plight of the Afro-Uruguayans because South America is racist as fuck. The racial hierarchy, the racial oppression, the racial dynamic is the same, just like North and South America. The European conquistadors, like the European Brits, came here, imposed their religion, pillage, exploit, genocide of the natives, bring in African slaves, exploit their labor. Same shit. Except up here, they mostly Protestant and English. Down there, they mostly Catholic and Spanish, but they both see themselves as white. All these people y'all call them brown. They not brown down there. They only brown up here. They only run that hustle on y'all gullible color folks, right? But Valaro, he was good friends with Che Guevara and Fidel Castro, and with the non-alignment movement and the anti-colonial struggles of Latin America, and the anti-colonial struggles in Africa and Central Asia during the communist revolts and the socialist revolts. He was very active, and he's like, I don't have a gun, I have a paintbrush. So he would paint these cultures, he would do these sketches and drawings, and so he was a progressive leftist artist. And so I went to see his castle, which is phenomenal. Well, they turned half of it into a hotel, which I'm sure he probably wouldn't have been down with that shit. But they turned half of his place into a hotel you don't have access to, but the other half is a museum with his phenomenal artwork, and he was extremely prolific. So that's one thing. My wife has this on her shelf. I think she's going to take it down to her school and put it in her office, but this is a working pencil. Look at this. It's my notes. This is an actual pencil. I don't know how you would ever sharpen it, but the lead works and everything. Anyway, so this is what I bring back. Ballin'. Right. Ballin'. Right? Punta del Este. And then while I was there, that's what my wife got for herself. She also going to take the sticker. Like, she's taking everything, but I got something for myself. This is one of my favorite politicians. Y'all know I'm a political science and public policy, so this is one of my favorite. He was once known as the poorest president in the world. He refused to move into the presidential palace. He donated 90% of his income to the poor and working class people. Before he ran for president, he was locked up for revolution. He was a revolutionary guerrilla war fighter in solidarity with the other revolutionary movements, Marxist, Leninist, communist, all the good things that you would expect from Latin America in that era. And that's, of course, President Jose Pepe Mujica. They call him Pepe. So I saw a magnet and I'm like, oh, I'm in Punta del Este. Even though he's not from Punta del Este, he's from Montevideo, where I was staying. And we took a charter bus over to Punta del Este, and they had him there, where they didn't have as much. And also when I was in Uruguay, there was a monument to several fallen communist and socialist leaders there. And when I went to Punta del Este, when you're on like the bus stops and you see the graffiti, if you know what to look for, there was Nazi right-wing racist graffiti all over Punta del Este, and which Let me see. I'm sorry. There was racist right-wing graffiti in Punta del Este, and there was progressive graffiti all over, anti-imperialist graffiti all over Montevideo, which I wouldn't have thought. So, I didn't know. But shit is mad interesting. So this is a magnet. So I'm going to put this on my refrigerator. One of my favorite elected officials. He's no longer in power. Then he was president. Then his wife ran and became president. So he was both the president and then vice president. So he was the second gentleman, like the first lady. He was the second gentleman. Very interesting individual. Respect. They had a shrine to what's his name? Salvador Allende, the socialist president, who was overthrown in Chile, in the neighboring country. And I was on the bus going from the hotel to the Universidad, and they had like this shrine. And the bus was coming up behind it, and there were flowers and candles. And I'm like, that's a shrine. And I get around the front, and it was a bust of Salvador Allende. So anyway, and there's a bookstore on every corner, like liquor stores in the hood. They have bookstores everywhere. They have dozens and dozens of bookstores, and I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I know revolutionary, communist, progressive. I know the symbols. I know socialissimo, and anarcho. So I understood that there are a lot of progressive, small, independent bookstores. It is a reading culture, a green culture. It was great. Very excited. Like I said, I wish I had some souvenirs from Panama, but we were in the middle of the forest, and you can't even pick a flower and shit, because when you try to come back, customs gonna bum rush your ass. So you can't bring nothing natural back. And we weren't really like when we were in Montevideo, we were in the city, we were in the urban areas. When we got to Panama, we did spend one day in Panama City. We just went out and ate and stuff. But our first time when we got there, we were out in the rainforest. So really wasn't nothing to cop. And didn't have no money anyway, because these things broke the bank. But this is it. This is all I brought back, besides me and my kids and my wife. So I went there for a submissive, exotic woman with my passport. I tried to get my passport bro on, but all I could bring back was a giant pencil. So it was interesting, enlightening. And one thing I'll say, if I had to take anything away from traveling through Central and Latin America, going through the imports, going through customs and immigration, and being on the streets, being up in the community, being out in the rainforest, let me tell you something. Corporate imperialism is much more insidious than military imperialism. McDonald's and all the multinational corporations have embedded themselves in these cultures and in these communities and these societies. Whereas if you see a foreign soldier marching up and down your street, if you see a foreign soldier marching up and down the street, you're more aware and more conscious of that you're being occupied, that you're being controlled, that someone's here taking your sovereignty. So if you see a U.S. Air Force logo or U.S. Marines logo, that might provoke a rebellion, an uprising. But you see the golden arches, if you see the Wendy's corporate logo with a little red-haired girl with pigtails, and you're like, hey, this is what you want. Wait, it's what's for dinner. So anyway, I saw a place that had been liberated only to El Modelo. You should look up the model, El Modelo. Shout out to Naomi Klein. I got to tell y'all my story about Naomi Klein. I was brainwashed. But I don't want to get too far off. But corporate imperialism is inescapable. And it's not just corporate logos selling you shitty corporate goods. It's the corporate extraction, the private industry extraction of resources, and the pollution and the destruction. I was in the rainforest, and then I got up to this high peak because I'm like, wow, as far as the eye can see. And I get up to this opening that they kind of set out. And then when I could see like miles in the distance, I could see the giant earth movers where they were just cutting that shit down, So I'm there And I could see the end of when you're on the ground, the forest looks endless. But if you go up in the air, the Canadian lumber companies, the U.S. lumber companies, the venture capitalists, cutting that shit down. Shit is whack. And it's cultural, it's corporate economic imperialism. And we think, oh, the world is decolonized. You got your own flag. You got your own, get to vote for your own president. And you even think, I got a choice. I could go to McWendy's. I can go to Burger King. I can go to Wendy's. I've got choice. I've got my freedom and liberty. And this is something else that's funny as fuck. Because there's a lot of patriotism and pride, right? And it's so funny, just like American, when we're growing up here and they tell us about the revolution and liberty and freedom and overthrowing tyrants. And when they show us the revolutionaries and the freedom fighters and the people who overthrew the tyrants, it's crackers on both sides. So you had slavers overthrowing monarchs, and they force us to celebrate slavers who overthrow monarchs. And so when we look at liberty and fireworks and saying the pledge and the old flag and all of our celebration, we're celebrating enslavers and colonizers who overthrow monarchs and invaders. And I was like, and then I'm in Latin America and I'm seeing monuments to conquistadors, people who killed off the natives and enslaved my ancestors. And they have monuments. This is the man who fought for our liberty. This is the monument to our freedom fighters. And I'm like, that's a motherfucking conquistador. But the conquistador, well, we fought off the Spanish crown. The liberation theologists. You're still a fucking Catholic. If you were a true liberation theologist, you would take your colonial religion away from the slaves and the natives and the non-Europeans you imposed it on. So I'm like, they in the same situation. Every time I see some liberation, revolution, they're looking up at conquistadors, people who invaded, slaughtered, enslaved, or their offspring. And I was talking to my youngest son. I said, imagine you and I come down here. Your mother and I come down here and take over this land. Kill off a bunch of people, enslave a bunch of people, pollute, pillage, destroy everything, me and your mother. And then you are down here and you looking at me and your mother do all of this. And you was like, man, and you look at your brother and say, mom and dad, they doing all this, but they're not breaking us off. We getting like a penny. Let's get rid of mom and dad and we could take it all. And so you kick me out. And then after you kick us out, you turn to the people we invaded and say, hey, we free, y'all. We's free. We all free. And this is our Independence Day. Let me tell you something. Latin America and the United States are not independent, have not been liberated. It is a transfer of ownership. So you go from colonists, from monarchs to colonists. That's not progress. But they've tricked us into it. And just like you got black people here in the United States who talk about the spirit of 76, life, liberty and rights and freedom of America, you got brothers and sisters, indigenous and African people in Latin America. Like, we's free now in Spanish. So it's a magnificent hustle. And then right after they kicked out the Spaniards or kicked out the British, they went and sat at the negotiation table and started. Now they got trade agreements, military, mutual defense pacts and treaties and UNs and World Bank, IMF. So they got free from the Brits only to form a stronger alliances. And here we are, black folks, thinking we's free. That freedom had anything to do with us, as if our fight for freedom ended with theirs, when our shit ain't even got started yet. But I digress. Anyway, I had a good time. I learned a lot. But you know what's better than learning new shit? Nobody will admit this but me, but it's true for everybody. You know what's better than learning new shit? Is having old shit reinforced and confirmed. Confirming is better than learning. Say it with me. Confirming is better than learning. So a lot of views, positions, ideas, conclusions that I had about Latin America, Central America. I was able to interact with people. So I learned some shit I didn't know. I reached some conclusions I didn't formerly have, but I confirmed a lot too. You know, so it's all great. But let's move on. I know my OG, triple OG, Rip the Crip. I know you in here. And I've been seeing online. I was born and raised in Kansas City, so it's Chiefs everywhere running me up off the internet. Because I hate the Chiefs. It's a racist team with a racist name in a racist city and a racist colonial game. Don't like nothing about it. But all my uncles, my brothers, my OGs, my homies from back in the day grew up with, they all love the Chiefs. So I know how to shut up. But the Chiefs quarterback, Mahomes, his wife is a white nationalist, a Christian nationalist. So it's this brother, he's of mixed race, and he's with a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman, so he's about to Eartha Kitt his shit. And not only are you going to Eartha Kitt your shit, you out here with a you couldn't get a liberal white Mahomes. I'm sure there's plenty of liberal white girls, you know, to home make for you, to help you further, you know, return to your roots. But anyway, she was liking on posts that Trump's having. Anyway, she was pro-Trump. And some people are just like taken aback because Mahomes is embraced and beloved by so many people of so many people of African descent, or I say. And many of them claim him. You know, we love a lot of black folks claiming him. But she came out liking Trump, pro-MAGA. She's a MAGA head. He's just a mixed-race black man, or an Obama mixed-race black man, married to not just a white woman, but married to a conservative, reactionary, Christo-fascist white. And so Trump came out and said, I hate Taylor Swift. So he came out and said, you know, I hate Taylor Swift because Taylor Swift and the Swifties is on his shit. And so Patrick Mahomes' wife said, wow, he hates Taylor Swift. I have to reconsider my support for Trump because this blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman who's like me, even though she's a liberal and I'm a right-wing reactionary, she hates my friend. So Trump hating black people, Trump hating refugees and migrants, Trump hating literally anything, Trump trying to murder the Central Park Five, Trump being not only accused of sexual assault by a multitude of women, but being convicted and having to pay a multi-million-dollar fine for sexual assault. That didn't bring any hate from her. That wasn't enough. But she draws the line at hating on another billionaire white woman. That's where she drew the line. And there are still liberal people out here like, good, we won her back. That was weird as hell. But anyway, that's all I know about the Chiefs. I ain't watched them play. I fast and pray to the extent that that works, that they don't win the Super Bowl again. I hate going home, and I might be there in September or October. I'll be in Kansas City. I hate going home to an ocean of red. So I am very privileged to live in Chicago, where the Bulls don't seem to be winning shit and the Bears don't seem to be winning shit. I am very happy when I was in New York and the Jets and the Giants and the Knicks weren't winning shit. The worst thing in my life is to live in a city that has a championship or winning ball chaser team. I hate that shit. I hate it. There was a time when I first moved here, I don't know if it was the Sox or what's the other team? Cubs, that was winning shit. But one of the teams was winning shit. And people up and down the street, yeah, you gotta see that, gotta get home for the game. I hate hearing about it. I hate how people feel connected or enthusiastic about it. After religion, after I devangelize and get everybody to abandon their religion, my next thing is to abandon any allegiance of sports teams. That's my second agenda, my insidious leftist agenda. But anyway, Moving on. But that's the only time I know about sports. If it's some off-color shit, I don't know. People say Mahomes is really good. I could care less. I hope he gets traded. I'm not going to say I hope he gets injured, because people keep telling me about energy and vibration. Anyway, I can't talk. See, I got this shit. It's too much shit going on. I've been gone too long. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. Q's in the building. What's up, bro? I have to say this. I don't know if y'all... Yes. Abandon religion, abandon sports teams, and abandon capitalism. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yes, but if we put capitalism up front, if capitalism erodes, I don't think sports would be a problem. Sports are bad because they're capitalistic. There's a lot of shit that would be just fine without capitalism. So if these teams were for, by, and of the people, cooperative, collective, then, and not billion-dollar imperialist enterprises, I would probably pick me a team. But anyway, notice I haven't mentioned Diddy. I'm proud of myself. I mean, Diddy is goddamn. But hey, remember what I said about learning versus confirming? This is another confirmation and affirmation. You know, y'all go out here and want affirmations from the ancestors, and y'all say, "Pod." My affirmation is when I say something and I say it, even if it's something that's obvious, even if it's something that's, because I don't know if you've been following me, you heard what I said about the living embodiment thing, right? I said living embodiment. I said when black people do something in this society that white people have been doing overwhelmingly, if one black person did it, they become the living embodiment of that thing, because we're under racism. And racism and white hegemony saturates not just media and the economy and things outside of us. White hegemony, white domination, racism dominates our perceptions. It dominates and warps our very imagination and our very grasp of reality. Huey P. Newton said, power is the ability to define reality and have it act in the desired manner. So the racists have power. So they have defined reality. And no matter what, even if your own experience, if the facts, if the data, if your eyeballs, your ears all communicate, if the physical sensation of your skin communicate one thing with you that contradicts the systems and institutions of capitalism and white hegemony, your senses, your mind is going to lose. And so Cosby became the living embodiment. Now, we have serial rapists on our money. I ain't got no more money. I did bring back 5 pesos, little coin. But we have, go look at any currency. Andrew Jackson, Thomas Jefferson, PDF file. Thomas Jefferson, who not only raped children and impregnated them and then sold those offsprings off to other abusers. But if someone's accused of being a predator, you'll be like, oh, you're a Cosby. Cosby is now the living embodiment of not just being a serial rapist. He's a living embodiment of impunity, of acting and functioning with an impunity because of your power and status. Bill Cosby. And there were white men who had been doing this before Cosby. There were white men doing this before Cosby ever told his first joke. He's the living embodiment. Jesse Smollett. Jesse Smollett is the living embodiment of false police reports. Someone making up and concocting a story, especially on a race. Now, white women, Emmett Till, been telling lies and brothers been swinging. Nobody even got touched. Nothing happened. Jesse told a lie. Oh, he lied. Oh, he's a liar. Oh, you're Jesse Smollett. O.J. Simpson is the living embodiment of not just domestic violence and homicide, but he's the living embodiment of beating the case because you're rich and prominent. How many wealthy, established white men have killed whole fucking countries, have murdered whole fucking nations, have wiped whole cultures, languages, and races of people and ethnicities, have wiped them from the map. But when somebody in the United States says, hey, you know, when a powerful man commits a heinous crime, he's going to get off. Like OJ, right? OJ. So whenever brothers, black people, black men specifically, but a few of you sisters too, when you get some money, you know, if you fuck up and you go and look at your white billionaires, or if you're a millionaire, you go look at the white millionaires and you see them doing shit and you be like, I'm going to do it too. When you get caught, you're going to be the living embodiment of that thing. Your name is going to be synonymous with that shit, even though for every one black person that did that shit, there are 100 million white people did it. I keep telling y'all don't listen. I need a black billionaire. I just found a black billionaire consulting company. I need to develop a black BBC. I'm going to develop the BBC for Diddy. This Diddy nonsense has me thinking about BBC, Black Billionaire Consulting. Because just because you have $1 billion, you're not elite. Black elites, I keep telling y'all this, to the black billionaires, if you ain't got at least 500 million in your account, you can sit back a little bit. Let me talk to the billionaires who listen to me. You're not elite because you got $1 billion. Mayweather, Jay-Z. Let me tell you something. Elite means you have to own the means of production. It's not enough to be able to buy a jet. You need to be able to extract, process, refine, and ship the jet fuel. The jet is at the end of the line of elitism. It's not the start of elitism. If you want to be truly elite, you have to own the extraction. You have to own or control the land it is extracted from, right? You have to control the refinery process. You have to control the regulatory process about the contents, labeling, and you have to control the policies, the political policies that govern the amount, the prices. That's elite. That's true elite. Simply buying a jet and being able to fuel it. You are what is called a hyper consumer. You have a high consumption capacity. You have no fucking power. And I hate to say it, because a lot of black folks, y'all like, I'm gonna secure the bag, you hustle grinders. So I know it must be horrible for the billionaires to hear, but imagine what it's like when you want to be class traders to hear, right? So it's not enough. Also, there's another part. You can't engage in integration. If you are a billionaire within someone else's culture, and that culture has a history of enslavement, hostility, discrimination against you, you are integrated into a culture. Elites, listen to me carefully. Elites engage in nation building, not in integration. True elites nation build. They don't fucking integrate. Now, there's cross-cultural engagement amongst elites. But the Arab elites worship an Arab god, speak an Arab language, and have their military policing Arab lands, Chinese, and every other elite. So if you're a black American and you have not repatriated back to Africa, or you have not, and then liberate that land, if you're a black American and you have not secured territory in the U.S., independent, reclaimed land, you are not elite. You are integrated, right? So you're a high capacity consumption integrationist. That's true elite. I'm sorry to tell you. And elites are always in perpetual competition and conflict. Elites don't seek to join with other elites. They seek to subvert other elites. So if you are a black elite and you are not at war with Warren Buffett, Jay-Z sitting in a booth with Warren Buffett and Forbes, he's not elite. So if you are an elite member of an oppressed people, or if you're an elite member of a race who has their land colonized, there's only type of elites we can generate from our community are revolutionary elites. People who are engaged in high-level subversion, conflict, resistance to our oppression. Integrated people are not elite. So shut the fuck up, all you black people. Oh, he's a black man. Oh, look at Jeffrey Epstein. And all you complain when you see a black person with $1 billion get treated like Pookie from Up Around the Way. When you see a black man with $1 billion don't got no more flex than a black man with a wet food stamp, understand that elite was an illusion. That elitism and status was an illusion. So stop fucking crying about it. If you are a black person with an enormous amount of resources, an enormous amount of talent, an enormous amount of influence, an enormous amount of anything, your mind must go to redistribution for the purposes of subversion of our oppressors and liberation of our collective. And then when we are a liberated people, we can once again begin to speak more accurately of an African elite. So the shit, the mansions, the private jets, the titles and crest, the red carpet, that's where the black elite start. But that's where the white elite ends. The Arab elite ends. Now, I'm anti-elitist. I don't even want elites. I don't want to be a member of the elites. I don't give a fuck about elitism. I see elites as our enemies and traitors. Right? But if you're going to do it, but if that's your thing, if that's what you want to do, if that's your ambition, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly. So, and I'm just telling y'all that because I'm sick of y'all acting confused. It ain't even got to be something as severe as Diddy. And shut the fuck up with these bullshit excuses talking about it's illegal to be freaky. It ain't illegal to be freaky. It ain't illegal to be freaky. I'd have been locked up. They be kicking in the door of me and Dr. Mingo's little condo on the south side. If freakiness was illegal, that's why I got to talk to her. I'm going to tell her, I got to tell my wife, stop buying shea butter in bulk. Because she loves to go to the Nigerian spot and haggle. She loves haggling. She likes to go down to the Nigerian spot and haggle on get these big tubs of shea butter. And then she'll come home and whip. She has her own recipes. That's why whenever the reactionary black feminists would get mad at me and call me ashies, I was like, anytime you want to do elbows to elbows, because I got some of the best butters, shea butters, whipped shea butter, my wife's shea butter, whipped shea butter recipe. I put it up against any of these anybody. So, but anyway, she likes to buy a lot of the shit, make big tubs, and then she puts it in various little cute containers and passes it around. She gives it to my son, who I don't think has ever used it. I don't know what he's doing with it, brushing his teeth with it, because I can't vouch for his elbows, but my elbows and knees all summer long. Now in the winter, I'm putting on these long shirts. The fall, I ain't doing no elbow battles. But anybody want to call me an ashy hotep, come on with it. I'll elbow battle anybody, anytime, any place throughout the spring and summer. What am I talking about? Oh yeah, man, they kicking indoors and y'all accounting, y'all watching how many lubricants and moisturizers somebody had. So I'm gonna tell my wife, listen, next time, no more than 2 or 3 of them tall, long tubs of shea butter. But she likes to get like the golden yellow shea butter and the lighter skin, but whatever. I ain't trying to tell her what to do, because whatever she's doing is right, and I sure the heck don't want to do it. But like I said, the feds ever kick in our door for our revolutionary activities, and y'all gonna be asking the feds how many. Oh, BroDiallo and Dr. Mingo had like 50 tubs of shea butter. We was gonna whip it. It's for elbows. Anyway, so I've learned that lesson. One thing, I've learned something from Diddy. But what was I saying? Oh, freakiness is not a crime. Diddy has not been incarcerated despite what Dr. Umar or Faison Love or these other rich ninja eggplant writers, these wealthy black eggplant writers, despite what they say. I looked over. It's only a 14-page. I think it's for shit though. Fuck the Justice Department. Fuck the mass incarceration system. Woo 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 woo. But let me tell you something. Before you tell me there's a conspiracy to take down a black man, I need to know two things. How were they a threat, asset, or encumbrance to the systems and institutions of white hegemony? And how were they an asset to our people? I'll ask you that again. Anytime you want to tell me the system's persecuting or taking someone down, you have to tell me how they were a threat to the system and an asset to our people. Because even if the system is abusing them, you got a couple of $1 million in private jets, you got all that power and influence, you can say right, quick, fast, and in a hurry. How were you an asset to our people? And how were you a threat to them? Or an encumbrance? You ain't even got to be a threat. I know how they move. Because if you can't answer those two questions succinctly, fuck you. That's my position. I have racial solidarity, but my racial solidarity comes with terms and conditions. And one of those terms and conditions is class, ideology, and race. So if you don't have a complementary ideology and you don't have in your class status put you on par with the exploited, the parasites, instead of down here with us, I ain't about to march for your ass. You know, I'll go to my 100th Mumia march before I go to my first Diddy march. Fuck that shit. But that's me. Yeah, some of y'all are better than me, and I don't deny that. Some of y'all got bigger hearts. Remember when R. Kelly was being interviewed and he said he needs to learn how not to have such a big heart? That's another thing. If he came to my BBC, my Black Billionaire Consultation Group, I would teach him how not to have such a big, because I ain't got no big heart. I boundless, endless love of my people. But that love is not agape love. It's not the Lord's love. My love comes with terms and conditions. You have to negotiate it. It's relatively easy to secure, but it also is relatively easy to lose. There ain't no Diddy. I'm not saying there's a Diddy march. Sorry. I wouldn't be surprised if there was. But, you know, I looked at the 14-page indictment, and despite all of his offenses, some of the most serious things they have is he had guns in his property that had obliterated serial numbers. You know, and with that, that's just literally caught red-handed. You cannot be in possession. So unless somebody else shows up and say, well, that was my gun, I took into Diddy's mansion and hid it without his knowing, unless somebody's going to cop to that weapon, they got him. That's what, 10 to 15 right there off Fed. You got to do 85%, unless y'all going to say they planted the guns. But they found, so to me, that stood out like, oh, that's red-handed. They found an illegal weapon, even if you have a gun license, even if you have a permit, even if you have concealed carry, even if you're in a free and open carry state, you're not allowed to be in possession of a firearm that hasn't obliterated. So I'm like, wow, that's open and shut. A lot of the stuff can be argued. A lot of it requires witness testimony and then collaboration. So the feds got him on that. So that's a decade off top. A lot of the other charges, even though despite your opinion about him, will have to be litigated and will They have to turn some people. A lot of it's circumstantial. A lot of it's based on um, victim testimony that has been spread across many years. So even if he's guilty, and with his high-priced lawyer, they can throw a lot of muck in there to lead to. I mean, just like with OJ, you know, they with his legal team and the circumstances. But then again, they say they acknowledge that they have video and audio, phone recordings, and video surveillance, but they didn't say what was in there. Because if they got video and audio of him coordinating, because and what's weird about it also is they keep saying RICO and throwing the word RICO around, but with RICO, you can't do RICO with one person. There are no co-defendants. I've never seen a RICO case with no co-defendants. It's just weird shit. It's just weird shit. But even if he's innocent of the accusation, I have no stance or no solidarity. Even when he came up with his love movement, he said that he wanted to promote capitalism amongst our people. Diddy is not an asset or an ally of the African community. He has been predatory going all the way back. One of the best articles I read on him way back was Village Voice. And called him the and I read this article. Oh wow, I don't see it. Man, they be scrubbing the internet. The internet's not like it used to be. I know some of y'all why would they take the internet sucks? Why did y'all let them break the internet? I'll see. Well, there was a really good article back in like 93. There was a really good article in the Village Voice, and this is back when the Village Voice was free, and this was before the internet was in popular use. So I would get the Village Voice to find out what acts were coming to town. Because New York, growing up in Kansas City, like Jungle Brothers, Poor Righteous Teachers, I'm talking to y'all, would never come and perform in Kansas City. Well, some of, you know, Common came, the Roots came, but when they wouldn't even come to Kansas City. They come to like Lawrence, Kansas, or KU campus to do like a college tour. But anyway, way back in 92, they were talking about Diddy's offenses against not just his artists, but the larger community in Brooklyn. And some of the shit he did in Queens, throwing these concerts where people were trampled to death, all kind of fuck shit. So all that to say is, it's a pretty horrendous thing. Like, one part I read, and I think if I read this on the air, they would have to snatch this video down. Like, one part it talked about where his parties were so aggressive, like the intercourse, I guess, and party was so aggressive, he'd have like a medical team on standby. So you'd be at one of his freak offs, and then they would give people IVs and medication. There would literally be like a triage, like a recovery room for the amount of drugs and physical exertion that people were engaged in. He'd have medical staff on deck to give people insulin and IV lines, so to help them, to keep them from expiring or help to keep them in the game. It's shit is wild. Some Caligula level shit. But then again, but I ain't gonna get into that. Let's move on. Where are we? It's 7:51. Shout out to everybody that came back, that waited on me, that was patient with me. I'm very happy to be back. I swear to you, I'm gonna avoid talking about Diddy and the living embodiment, even though Asia is the child brothel capital of the world. Go read Disposable People, United Arab Emirates, In Dubai, countries like Dubai, their whole economy, that is the sex trafficking capital of the world, sex slaves. And it's places all over the world where these abuses and trafficking are taking place. And the United States is not just an ally of many of these leaders and nations that engage in these behaviors and a facilitator. The U.S. military, look at the abuse on the in Japan, the Okinawan base in Okinawa, and the U.S. soldiers' abuses. Let me tell you, from the start of the Ma'afa, from the very beginning of capitalist imperialism, sexual predation and exploitation is essential to it. Look at what they did in Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Philippines. So I know that the U.S. government don't really give a care about this shit. And a big part of it is about publicity. And the State Department and these, they want to get a big public, like when they went down to Waco, Texas, and they called the media down and burned those people alive in Waco, Texas, the Branch Davidians, and they wanted a media spectacle. They want a big win for the and take down a big name. I know that, but listen to me. Just because all of that is a factor, including racism, does not render him innocent. And you should have no qualms with denouncing predatory individuals in our community in the same breath that you denounce the very so-called justice system that imposes the law and enforces the law. It's all fucked up. But you don't have to defend one to condemn the other. I'm not praising the Justice Department. I'm not defending Diddy. It's two fucked up entities going at each other, and fuck them both. How about that? Neither is an option. And I think it's kind of weird. People are like, oh, I don't trust the government, so I got to support Diddy. No, you can say fuck them all. Just like those wealthy black billionaires can say fuck the whole black community. My motto is, as far as class consciousness, if we can't be up with you, we shouldn't be down with you. And when I say down with you, I don't just mean when you go down or you fall off. I mean like when Brandy said, I want to be down with you. I want to be down. I want to be kicking with you. I got your back. That's what I mean. If you was out private jetting and all you could do for your people over 30 years of us holding you up on our shoulders and say vote or die, I have no problem. And let me tell you something else. We have to weaponize our solidarity. We have to weaponize, radicalize, and revolutionize our solidarity. We shouldn't give it away. It is a precious commodity. It's one of the few commodities we still control. And from our community, any talented person from our community can go somewhere else and get more money than we can give them, get more fame than we can give them more status than we can give them. But can't nobody outside our community give black solidarity to anybody but us, and we waste that shit. We be showing as much love to the race traitors as our own revolutionaries and freedom fighters. How the fuck did they have a free McMeal march in a town and nobody mentioned Mumia? But I digress. I wanted to talk some shit about Willie D. But what are we here to say? And Janet Jackson. Woo, Janet Jackson got more nerve than a toothache. But if I get into it, Janet Jackson is out of pocket talking about Kamala ain't black. Woo, she got more nerve than a toothache when she let a white boy half her age disrobe her on the national stage. We don't need you to tell us nothing about nothing, especially when it comes to race and blackness. Janet, and y'all love it. Oh, Janet, Auntie Janet told it. Y'all really, man? Really? Janet's an auntie now? But I digress. What am I here to talk about? Oh, halfway crooks. Halfway crooks. And let me tell y'all something. I'd say a good 65% of the criticisms of Kamala I see are rooted in sexism. Not in a principled political stance. Not in progressive political ideology. Most of that shit is rooted in sexism. And I didn't see this black debate with Obama. And she's blacker than Obama. Well, whatever blackness y'all want to give her, she got more blackness than Obama. But I didn't see this debated with Obama. I think a lot of this shit is sexism. And I can't tell you, I ain't taking no shortcuts. I don't support Kamala. I will not vote for Kamala. But all of my criticisms are devoid of sexism, anti-blackness, and misogyny. None. I will not allow myself to go there because she is a woman of mixed racial heritage, and part of that mixed racial heritage is from my side of the fence. So I will make fun of her, I will denounce her, I will oppose her, but I ain't about to fucking engage in no anti-blackness, sexism, and misogyny when it comes to her. And a lot of people are using the fact that a mixed race woman is running for office to just blather all the, oh, she slept her way to the top. Yes, it did. ADOS was here during Obama. It's been with us since slavery, this house Negroes. And y'all let these crackers play in y'all face about race. Let's get into it, because y'all getting off. I might not even get to halfway crooks. Let me tell y'all something. Y'all letting these white folks play in your face about race. So let me tell you the real. Number one, Dr. Francis Caris Welsing correctly articulated that white people only see two races. White people only acknowledge two races, white and non-white. I'll say it again for black people. White people only acknowledge two races, white and non-white. When it comes to the non-white side, they don't give a fuck about the nuance, the mixture, the concentration. What? I'm sorry. The Village Voice was free. You could get free. Yes, it was. What are you talking about? Was I still in The Voice by accident back in 92? The Village Voice is a free weekly newspaper in New York City and is available online. But yeah, back in the 90s, that shit was free. I was there when they went from, because first it was free all over the 5 boroughs. And then it was free in Manhattan, and you had to pay like $2 in the outer boroughs. And all the drug addicted entrepreneurs would go to Manhattan, get whole stacks of it, and take the train and back to the Brooklyn and sell them themselves. But yes, it was free. Just go look it up. Just Google Village Voice free. It's free online, but you could get a free. Yes, it was. It's like the Chicago. There were free weeklies all over the city. I used to read the Village Voice. Yeah, they just look. Here's the containers. Didn't have locks. What are you talking about, Allison? You're wrong. But anyway, where was I? Trump don't give a fuck whether she's white or black or Indian. He just knows she's not white. They're pretending, oh, so all of a sudden she's black. They don't give a fuck. And the fact that we letting these white, right-wing, racist, white nationalist, Christo fascist motherfuckers gas y'all up. Gas y'all the fuck up. Now let me tell you, the reality of race is African people, the black race, white people, we didn't dictate or determine what qualified as who was black and who was not. White people did. They determined our status. 3/5 of a human being, chattel slave with no rights that any white man is bound to respect. Then they fought a war, emancipated us, and redefined us again according to the U.S. Constitution. Now, if you look at throughout the history of race, there are people who were defined as Aryan, who had skin darker than mine, from Arab and parts of Asia. There were people who were defined as Aryan or white or honorary Aryan. There were people who were defined as Negroid or black. who had no lineage dating back or directly to African culture or African people. So white people have always manipulated and played games with racial classification and racial titles. So there was a time any person that had one drop of black blood was of the status of a Negro. And they had whole communities dedicated to finding these absconders. When black people, there's so many books and so many documentaries and even movies made about Negroes who were passing as white. My great aunt, who will be 90 this year, she said that in my family, the Bowies, the Streeters, the Jeffersons, my family lineage, there was a offshoot of my family tree that became white. My great grandmother, Genevieve Bowie, her maiden name was Blackwell. The Blackwell were a prominent family, Exodusters. Look up the Exodusters. Look up Oklahoma, Black history, and one of the patriarch and matriarch of that family had a number of children. A couple of those children were lighter skinned. They were mixed, I think, French, African, and Native. So they were fairer skinned. And some of them was like, well, I'm going to marry me a high yellow. I'm going to marry me a back then colored, also in the Creole was mixed race. But anyway, long story short, my aunt said that my great grandmother's Bowie, my great aunts, because my aunt is my grandmother's baby sister who's 90. My great aunt, anyway, long story short, there's a branch of my family tree that has gone white. That back in the 40s and 50s they were passing. And they were the Blackwells, and they moved out west. They didn't head north. When my family came up from the south, most of them went north, working on the rails, working in the industries of the north. I had some that went west, and parts of they passed. So because of the reason why this race debate is so prominent is because white people have severe, acute, unrelenting racist aggression. So you had some people trying to pass for white. You had some people where if you were a mixed heritage was a death sentence, especially if a white woman gave birth to a colored child. So coming out of that history, for African people to let somebody like Trump provoke or be engaged in a conversation about whether or not somebody's black, first of all, the fact that he was the one that kicked it off. Number two, the fact that I didn't hear this fight with Obama, because Kamala has a black father and an East Asian or East Indian mother. Obama had a white mother out of Kansas and a Kenyan father. And I didn't see that shit. So I think more of that's rooted in sexism than it is your racial purity and your racial hierarchy. We know that for most of the history in this country, because of the discriminatory laws and practices, most black people or most people of mixed heritage were classified as black and forced to live as black. So Kamala would have been in the back of the bus. During Jim Crow slavery, she might have been a house slave, but she sure enough wouldn't have been no white woman. And so black people, as we evolve, pretty much have embraced mixed race people, because many a times that the mixed race people, even though they were a subcategory and had certain opportunities and didn't were afflicted to certain things because they were light skinned. But then if you talk to a lot of black people or mixed race people or black people with light skin, they were like, well, it comes with its own fucking burden. The only thing being in a racist society is being all the way black, is being halfway between black and white, because white people got their own pathological predations and their own pathological fixation on mixed race people. So black African is a phenotype. It is a lineage. I'm an African man. I understand. And people of mixed heritage, we all know people of mixed heritage, depending on how they came up and who they came up with, Some tend to be all the way over here with us. Some tend to straddle, and some people tend to be and completely identify as white. And we know that we have a lot of mixed race people who embraced their African struggles, who were revolutionary freedom fighters, and we call them brother, we call them sisters, and ain't nobody about to debate or argue about whether or not they black. Now, I don't think Kamala's worthy of that because she is a status quo Democrat, neoliberal status quo Democrat. And that's my problem with her. I have no issues with her mixed heritage. And even if you're mad at her being mixed, talk to her daddy. It ain't her fault. And all this shit where they're talking about, well, Kamala is code switching. Kamala, number one, I saw an interview. Kamala was talking about, oh yeah, she literally said when she was with that Indian girl from The Office, half my family looks like you. Half my family looks like you. I'm still waiting for the thing where she denied that half her lineage was black and half her lineage was white. I know some mixed race people. I hung around them and was like, this brother is black, and I didn't even know he had a white parent. I just thought he was a brother that God had blessed with some good hair. Other than that, he was the blackest fucking dude in the neighborhood. Culturally, linguistically, environmentally, socially, black as fuck. But he was mixed or biracial. I know another dude had a black father, white mother. This dude is a fucking German. He's white as fuck. But up until this moment, black people really had no idea. Listen, if you mixed, we understand you also face some discrimination, racism, boom, boom, boom. Just because you of mixed race, white folks have never embraced. White folks would take mixed babies and put them right on the auction block next to the African babies. White folks would take a mixed man who stepped out of line, who eyeballed a white woman, and hang him right next to the black man who hung. So we know there's some commonality. So we about to fight and bump heads with the mixed race over a fucking white German immigrant drunk. And we gonna let that provoke and direct the conversation? Y'all weird as fuck for that, and y'all weirder as fuck for that because, again, somebody go back and pull up some articles, pull up some essays, pull up some debates where y'all was doing this shit with Obama when they said Obama was a black president. And I know some of y'all was, but it was not to this level. So I think it's more so rooted because what's the difference between her and Obama besides her being blacker than Obama by my standard? She may not be black, but she's blacker than Obama. Obama didn't get this hate based on his mixed heritage. Oh, but she is, but Michelle with her class trading ass carried a lot of weight for that. I don't think maybe she wouldn't get this if she was a woman, and she definitely wouldn't get this heat if she was married to a brother. But I digress. Don't let white folks play in your face. Black people have a certain solidarity and a certain sympathy and a certain connection with mixed race people because white people are racist against mixed race people. And a lot of times, and depending on what era in time and what white races, what type of caliber of racing you're dealing with, they got more hatred with the mixed blood. They got more hatred than the only thing worse than is a lover. So they see mixed race people as a greater affront to their racist ideology and their eugenics ideology because they represent their greatest fear. Go read Neely Fuller. And now y'all want to just kick all these mixed race black people, mixed race black, meaning that you're mixed, but one of the people in that mix is black. You want to kick all them to the curb because Trump had a question, because Trump is propagandizing you. How the fuck you let an idiot like Trump propagandize you? Anyway, BroDiallo show. I was going to talk about halfway crooks. I don't even feel like it now. And Janet Jackson, would she call her son black? Let me see what she calls her son, who's half Arab. What do you call herself? Janet's wild. That's a wild girl. Got the nerve to question somebody's blackness. Janet, man, let me tell you something. The Jacksons got more nerve than a toothache. As if you give a fuck about blackness. Since when Janet give a fuck about anything black? Janet and her whole family was famous all the way through the civil rights era. When you see them doing anything, they was around with the Panthers. They was around with SNCC. They couldn't even do the non-violent, we shall overcome shit. Where the Jacksons been? They got all this fame, all this money. Michael Jackson flew past Africa to go to Bosnia for Bosnian orphans. And then he did that whole We Are the World bullshit and robbed us. Y'all went and bought that shitty ass single, that shitty ass song, but Michael did kill it on that. It's a choice to make it. But the money didn't get to Africa. So even when he did something for Africa, it was a con. Them Ethiopians didn't see that money from We Are the World. So let me tell you something. I'm willing to talk to y'all about race and who's black and who ain't black. I don't think our community or our race should be a revolving door for anybody to just come through and claim us. I have nothing but respect and consideration. But everybody ain't worthy to have that conversation. I'm not about to have a discussion about the quality of literature with an illiterate person. I'm not about to debate animal rights with a fucking swine eater. Okay? Some people ain't worthy to talk. Just hold it down. You worry about the race of your... That my bleach. They look like a browning. Whose goddamn white baby is that? Who's goddamn... And now y'all done lifted... Y'all out here talking about Janet's auntie. Janet. Oh, Janet. Where Janet? Has she even shared the hashtag Black Lives Matter? The Jackson family is the most racially post-racial. They may not have been born white, but they damn sure bought their way into it. So I agree. I don't know. I agree. If Joe Jackson, everybody hate Joe, old abusive Joe, if he was fighting for folks, hey, let me know. I ain't down there. I asked the question. Listen. I don't know the Afro Jacksons. I'm too young. I'm old, but I'm not old enough to know the Afro. I know the Jerry Curl Jacksons. And I know the Jerry Curl Jacksons ain't been down. They ain't been on the front lines, the sidelines, or the rear guard of no struggles that our community has gone through in the last half century. I know that. Whatever they were doing in the 60s, I wasn't born in the 60s. You can come tell me about it. And if what they did in the 60s was hardcore enough to carry them to now, but like I said, whose goddamn white baby is that? You know, and she didn't just have, she had a baby with the Arab oligarch. An oppressor. So, hey, watch your mouth. Y'all just, here's the thing. There's a lot of people I don't like. There's a lot of people I dislike. I don't like Dr. Fubar. But if Trump came out attacking Dr. Fubar tomorrow, I ain't about to be like, ooh, Trump's on point. Some people just need to sit shit out. That's me. Now, I ain't even got time, man. Y'all play too much. I guess I won't have time for Q&A. Y'all want to open up for Q&A, or y'all want to talk about halfway crooks, Reformist versus Revolution? I got all these fucking notes, and I haven't even started on my notes yet. Y'all, but I'm out of practice, too. Maybe I should have got some lighter topics. Is that... is that Drake... Kendrick beef still going, or y'all stop rooting for Kendrick after he gonna buck and shuffle for the Super Bowl? Anyway, yes he did. Yes he did. Yes he did. Stop fronting. Trump didn't start this whole question. Well, he's in it. Y'all didn't tell him to shut the fuck up. I ain't seen nobody tell Trump to shut the fuck up. I ain't seen nobody step to Trump or call out Trump for, is she black? I don't know. I see people regurgitating his bullshit. There ain't no revisionist history. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to get on topic. Let's talk about reformist versus revolution. Because this happens every election year. And a lot of people think if you advocate or work for a reform, then you can't be a revolutionary. If you compromise yourself and you vote and they say, hey, because I talked to a brother whom I respect. I had a conversation with a brother I respect. He's a bright brother. He's a committed brother. Whoop, whoop, whoop. I'll say all the accolades for him because I'm saying good things about him because I'm about to say something bad about him. He's going to vote for Kamala. Now, I'm going to say something else, too. I might bring him on here. My oldest son, 22 years old. He's about to vote in his first presidential election. It's not his first time voting. From the moment or is it his first? I don't know. I don't know if this is his first. I could do the math. He's 22. He just made 22 though. He's a new 22. Anyway, my son went to the polls. He registered Democrat, and he says he intends to vote for Kamala Harris. And I'm like, word, oh, have I failed? Next to the I can't even tell you that. My son got a job, so he's going off the rails. My son is wild. My son got a job at a cafe, and he espresso, like barista type shit, right? And he went to work, and they were like, can you help out at the kitchen? We're getting rushed. Can you come to the back? So he goes to the back, and the guy says, yeah, cook that egg. And my son like froze, like, the fuck? Cook an egg? They were born vegan. So he's been vegan his entire life. And like a real hippie baby, like home birth, breastfed for 2 years, like just some old barefoot ass tree hugging hippie type shit. Me and Dr. Mingo, she wasn't Dr. Mingo back then. She was just Urk. And so we were on that radical fucking shit. So anyway, home birth with the doula. Shout out to Tyoma, the Brooklyn Duma, the queen of the midwives. Tyoma delivered him and all the other little African babies in Brooklyn in the early 2000s. But what did I say? Oh, so he goes to the back, and the guy's like, yeah, I got an order for an egg sandwich and shit. So he cooked his first egg. Then he calls me with like amazement, like, yo, Dad, I fucking cooked an egg. I'm like, how dare you? And he's like, what? And then he start that shit. What's that say? Can you pay my bills? Pay my automobiles and pay my bills. I mean, he got a daughter now. He got him a woman. So I guess eggs, chickens, watch out. But anyway, he cooked an egg and he's voting. And then Skip Koenig called me right after that. I'm like, good. I need to talk to a good brother because I'm about to disown my son who cooked an egg. Anyway, respect due. But here's the thing. I was like, how dare you vote Kamala? And he's like, listen, Dad, I'm being cold, distant, and calculating and strategic. I'm a college student. I got student loan forgiveness. He had some student loan forgiveness that the Republicans want to reverse. He's like, I got a daughter. I got a 1-year-old daughter, and I'm going to vote for Supreme Court and I'm going to be part of this movement to reinstate my daughter's reproductive rights before she's even of reproductive age. So he has a lot of specific policies, and he's being pragmatic and practical, which is weird for me to say. Oromo and pragmatism and Oromo and practical. So I understand. I sympathize. Me and his mama, we old school radicals, and he's going to have a different approach. And I have to say, when I was his age, I was more of a liberal than a radical. So I understand we're going to continue to dialogue. I'm going to continue to talk to him about other election options and other things he can do outside the political arena. But they already gone. My youngest son went to his first protest march and the March for Her. So my sons are cultivating and developing into, but I don't need them to be mimic me. I don't need them to be, but all that to say, a lot of people think if you champion and act or advocate for a reform, then you're automatically not a revolutionary. And I think that is backwards, and it's just plainly inaccurate. There is a big difference between being a reformer or being in favor of reform and being a reformist. Like, it's a difference between being an individual and being individualistic or being an individualist. So a reformist takes the conclusions and conducts themselves in such a way that the system can be corrected and fixed by reforms. So they are looking to correct the system and looking for reforms, and their reforms are more of the mind to fix the system. That's what a reformist is. A reform can correct or fix or remedy the system. Whereas people who advocate and work towards reforms, but that aren't reformists, understand that they are seeking reforms to speak to the more immediate concerns of the people. But they do understand that reforms do not validate or repair the system. So one of the reforms that I greatly appreciate and that I greatly advocate for that happened in my lifetime were two: the banning of CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons. Remember the hole in the ozone layer. And so CFCs were banned and regulated by the government. It was a good reform. It had a positive impact, but it in no way is going to end my efforts to subvert the systems and institutions of capitalism and global white domination. Number two, lead paint. When I was a kid and we'd be riding around in my mama's hoopty, and my mama had this old red car. I don't know what it was. This old red janky ass car. And instead of a gas cap, she would stuff some old fabric in there. Any old fabric in the gas cap to stop the gas from evaporating. And sometimes if she had to stuff a pair of old drawers, one time I got out, we was at Dirty Gertie's gas station. She said, "Boy, pump the gas." And I went around to the side, and it was a pair of old drawers, the one with the blue and gold band around the waistline. Before men started wearing sexy drawers. I'm from the era when men, if your underwear was sexy, was forbidden for men to wear sexy drawers. Now, you know, my wife go out, and my wife, she buys me shit all the time. But when she buys me underwear, she calls me. And I have to come down and model the underwear. Like, if she buys me, like, she just got me this button-down shirt, real classy, real nice. We got a funeral to go to Friday, and I think she went out and got me something to wear because I'm a pallbearer in the funeral. Shout out to the elder James and passing on. He was 90, so you know, brother was ready to go, and his passing, we're going to celebrate his life and his passing, not lament his loss. But what I'm getting off. Anyway, that's why I say, man, if Freaky was against the law, y'all be online talking about how many buckets of. But anyway, my wife, she comes, yo. I'm like, oh, she must have brought me some draw. Otherwise, she would just take my stuff and hang it or set it up. But I gotta show her how these look. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, I went around there and it was some gold and blue draws, but she would stick any fabric she had in there. Anyway, whenever she pull up, and this was when gas was maybe like 38 cents a gallon, she would pull up and hand me $3-4 to the back seat. I wasn't in a seat belt, wasn't in a booster, and she'd be like, "Get leaded gas," because leaded gas was the cheapest fucking gas. So she pulled back, "Get some leaded gas." I get out the car, run in there and pay, because you wasn't no paying at the pump either. This is like in the 80s. This was like in the 80s. And my mom was a single mom, so, you know, I had to step up and be a man. I was the oldest boy, so I was doing shit that a lot of young brothers wasn't doing. And so I had to run in there, put the $3-4 on the counter and say, $4 on 5. Now run out there and get the leaded gas. And I know if I put anything other than leaded gas in that car, that's an ass whipping. And now there is no more leaded gas. Gas is horrible. The oil industry is horrible. Internal combustion engines should be outlawed and obsolete. Cities should be walkable, mass transit, and powered by renewable energy. But all that to say, the people who organized fought for removal of lead from the gas. That is a positive reform. And also lead paint, the ceasing of using lead paint, and in fact, you could see violence in society. And the stats for 2023 just came out, and violent crime has gone down again. Interpersonal, intercommunal violence has been steadily decreasing as the lead levels, and in a lot of communities where you see high rates of violence, you can also look at lead contamination in the paint, the soil, a lot of old infrastructure, a lot of old former like Superfund sites, former canning sites. So lead contamination is horrendous. It's poisonous. Now, just getting lead, you got lead out of the system. There's still nuclear radioactive waste. There's still dioxin. Now we got fucking microplastics. So a person who is a reformist would say lead is out of the gas. My struggle is done. But a revolutionist says, yeah, if we can get lead out the gas, I'm willing to lend my support to that effort as we overthrow the system. So there are too many people, and I had someone who's a revolutionist, and they were talking about, yeah, fuck the Democrats and the Republicans, woo, woo, woo. And I brought up the issue of women's right to abortion and access to abortion. And he called it, which was wild to me. I think he said it was a garnish issue. I'd never heard that term before. I've been around for a while. And what's fucked up about that is pregnancy is a potential death sentence for every Black woman. Number one, because of the racism of the individual care providers and the nurses, the institutional and embedded racism and anti-Blacknism and misogynoir in the hospital institutions, because of the level of stress and abuse that most African women have to endure being African women in this system, and all that, saying that African women, this is the average. In some regions, it's much higher. Some regions, it's lower. But the average, African women are 5 times more likely to die giving birth or throughout the pregnancy process than white women. 5 times. Right? So for every white woman that dies, there's 5 African women. And listen, Black women are only what? 5 to 6% of the overall population. So pregnancy, every hospital I worked, a Black woman, every single Black woman pregnancy was classified as high risk. It could be Serena Williams. Think of who's the girl, the flipper. Simone Biles. If Simone Biles and her fiance or husband, if they have a child, the healthiest, most fit woman athlete in the world, she will automatically be classified as high risk, because just being Black renders you a high risk pregnancy. No other factors necessary. While we got honey boo-boos, mama, banging out 10 kids, living off of soap shavings and pork rinds, and she gonna have a baby and nobody ever think death. And for every Black woman that has a life-threatening thing, there's lifelong injuries. Let's developing high blood pressure that oftentimes could linger on, postpartum depression, diabetes, not to talk about renal issues, bladder issues. They just said, a study just came out that Black women are given unnecessary C-sections because a natural vaginal birth only brings in a fraction of the money that a C-section does. So they finding that they're giving Black women unnecessary, unwanted, and unneeded cesarean sections. Medical apartheid. And so for Black men not to come out banging hard for African women's reproductive rights and abortion on demand without apology, that means a lot more African women are going to die. A lot more African women are going to be physically have lifelong injury and harm. that could have had healthy pregnancies because they no longer have access to fundamental reproductive rights. And that is a reform. We had Roe v. Wade. Women won the right to abortion in 1973 and lost it, in 2002, 2023, let's just say 2023, keep it on the threes. In that time, between those two times, as African women had the access to reproductive rights, there was still discrimination, abuse, harm being done. There was still need and cause for African women and black men as their lifelong allies to fight this system tooth and nail. But if I'm going to engage in revolution, I would like to engage in revolution with lead-free paint, lead-free gas, and African women having their reproductive rights, if it is an option. And fighting for progressive, on-the-ground reforms does not hinder or invalidate your fight for revolution. Telling your overseer, telling your oppressor, forgive some student loans, does not legitimize your oppressor, nor does it make you an ally or even more submit to the oppressor. This is so weird where people think, oh, if you go vote or if you advocate for a policy within the system, you're legitimizing the system. I have a bad secret for African people. The system doesn't need us for legitimacy. The system got legitimacy where we weren't even defined as human. And the system was ongoing and legitimate. African people, we cannot remove, we cannot validate or invalidate this system. We can organize for revolution to subvert, impose, and build a new system. But even if you're a patriotic black man or you're an anti-American revolutionary, that speaks to your impact and your relationship to the African community. It doesn't speak to your relationship to the dominant system, because the dominant system, you are a subject, you are oppressed, you are colonized, you are enslaved, wage slave. The system oppresses you. And you can say, I'm going to submit to the oppression, I'm going to embrace the oppression, I'm going to try to amend the oppression, I'm going to resist the oppression. And a lot of revolutionaries don't resonate with the larger community, because as we fight for our liberation, we tend not to give enough attention to the day-to-day struggles and suffering. So as we want to establish a black nation, we want to reunite with Africa and repatriate back to the continent. That's great. But at the same time we're fighting to get back to the continent, it is appropriate for us to be concerned with how people who use wheelchairs and walkers get across the street. And in this city, if you go by law, every sidewalk, every crosswalk has to be wheelchair accessible. It has to have that dip. But I do go to some cities, especially in more rural areas and the areas of the deep south, you cross the street and it's a curve and you can't even get up. And sometimes disabled people have to go all the way up the block in the street to find a driveway or something to get back on the sidewalk. So as we fight to get back to Africa, we can also, and it is also our obligation as human beings, as citizens, to also fight for disabled people to cross the street, to fight for better and humane treatment of livestock. I personally don't think animals should be used as commodities for human consumption or human entertainment. I don't think any sentient being should be treated like a product. But in that time, I also will say, hey, if we can reduce the level of abuse, the level of harm, as we fight for full animal liberation. And I know people in the vegan movement, especially when I was really new to activism, it was all or nothing. And I fully understand that sentiment. I hear people say that all or nothing shit, but I've yet to see somebody practice it. People tend to be all or nothing for everybody else's struggle. Disabled people can wait till the revolution. Women can wait. to the revolution. Hell, homeless people and all these other people can wait for the revolution. And these people over here trying to give people homeless, we need to bring down the system. We need to destroy capitalism. But then they get real fucking practical when it comes to them. I know people that are like, yeah, fuck this, fuck that reform. But those people, they have a secure home. Many of them own it. They ain't even got a car note. They don't have any student loan to pay off. So I think that revolutionaries need to also engage domestic day-to-day issues. We need to give voice to and advocate and articulate our positions. And a lot of times we need to say, hey, Black woman, once you got your student loans and your reproductive rights, that frees you up to engage in more radical and aggressive. Most of the people, when I organize and in the street, it tends to be the people who have a little bit of relief, a little bit of security, a little bit of extra resources that are able to come out here and participate in the more high-minded and more aggressive forms of resistance or revolution. And it goes the other way. How the fuck can you be pro-Black, a Black revolutionary, and you don't want any regulation on guns? You're a fucking gun nut. When our children, the number one killer of our youth is gun violence. And let me tell you something else about these gun people. All these Huey P. Newton gun club, RBG gun club, Black Guns Matter. Y'all need to stop using revolutionary and pro-Black rhetoric for your gun clubs, because those gun clubs are not revolutionary. I've been to concealed carry classes. I own a gun. I am a lawful gun owner. My wife is a lawful gun owner. She don't want to go to the range. She don't want it. She just has it. You know, I just like, you know, stand to it. But anyway, Black gun nuts, starting with Cutley Mike and his NRA bullshit. Gun reform is demonstrated, proven to save lives. Indisputable. Every time I go and engage with these Black revolutionary gun individuals, like Black Rambo and those just sadistic weirdo people that just, you know, are like Francis Cress Welsing, see the gun as an extension of their penis. The bigger, the louder, the more manly they feel when they're shooting it. I'm not talking about them, but all these Black conscious gun nuts. Those guns in those gun clubs are not revolutionary. They're not guerrilla. They're not underground. They're not there to fight for our freedom. Those guns will not be raised, aimed, and shot for our liberation. If you go to any of these Black gun clubs, they say, if the police come to you, get butt naked. Every single time I've been to the concealed carry, I've been to a couple of gun classes in New York. I've been to gun shows and all kind of gun shit in Missouri, down on the Missouri-Tennessee border, central Missouri, not so much here in Chicago. But every single one of these revolutionary gun clubs say, if the police come to you, even if they're in the wrong, even if they're violating their rights. There's this one guy, he has a popular YouTube gun guy. He's like a Black gun guy. He says, if you're a lawful gun holder, you put your hands, you're pulled over, you put both your hands on the steering wheel. And when the officer comes, you keep your hands on the steering wheel and you tell that officer, your officer, I just need to let you know that I have a loaded weapon that is to the right of me. I'll tell you where my weapon is. I have no intention of harming you or moving. And my gun license is in the thing that you get butt naked. That's what I mean. You get butt naked. You let that cop know where that gun is, and you be the most lawful, and you keep your hands gripped to that steering wheel with the engine off and the foot off the gas. I would do the same thing. So anybody doing that, your gun is not for revolution. The guns in our community are there to protect what few material assets we have from niggas who want to take them assets. That's what they're there for. The guy that was over the Revolutionary Gun Club, they came to his house and dragged him out of his house. He didn't throw a rock. And then he went on Democracy Now! To talk about how bad the police treated him. Why are you on Democracy Now! Talking to Amy Goodman about how the white man did you when you got what Biggie Smalls, what you think all the guns are for? What are the guns for? So if your guns are not for revolution, stop giving your gun clubs revolutionary names and naming them after revolutions. Call it the Personal Property Gun Club. Call it the Asset Security Gun Club. I know that's not as sexy, but that's what it's there for. Call it the Don't Touch My Car Little Nigga Gun Club. Call it that. Don't call it the Ray RBG Revolutionary Black. No, those are not revolutionary guns. And the majority of the guns in the hands of black people will be aimed and shot at other black people. And those other black people are not in the military, in the police force, or representatives of the state. It's a nigga that crossed you. And I understand it. I'm not saying surrender your guns. I'm saying stop promoting lies and illusions. And every responsible African seeing our children dying in these streets should be advocating for some type of sensible regulation of guns within this country. Gun control. Come take my weapons from my cold dead hands. My guns are for liberty. If guns, even white folks' guns, they lie too. So we telling lies, white folks saying they fighting for liberty, black folks saying they fighting for freedom and liberation. Y'all both lying. Because if white folks really had guns for liberty, they would have took it to the streets after the Patriot Act. White folks would have been in the streets after 9/11 and Bush and Congress put through the U.S. Patriot Act, which rendered just about rendered 8 of the 12, 10 bill of the 10 amendments, which is the Bill of Rights. 8 out of 10 of them motherfuckers is basically rendered null and void by the Patriot Act. And the right, that's one thing the right wing and the left wing were unified on during the Bush administration, that Bush hyper surveillance, detainment and detention, forfeiture and seizure of property, everything the white man claimed he got guns for has happened under a Republican administration, and nary a shot fired. They didn't even do like they did for January 6th and run up in there and smear feces on the wall. They didn't do shit. And go look up feces and January 6th feces. White folks was in their own capital. I'm never going to let that. If black people were out marching for George Floyd, if black people were out smearing feces, we got to hear every time they burn down cities. They burn down cities. Every time a white person says we burned down a city in a riot, say they smeared feces in a riot. I'd rather see some fire flames than see feces. But I digress. Even Kamala Harris sat there. Oh, if you come in my house, you're getting shot. Guns are there to maintain the class stratification. Anybody from a lower class level tries to rise up to a higher class level by stealing or taking some shit, and you shoot them, you're a hero. But if you shoot somebody above you on the class hierarchy, you're a villain. If you shoot somebody below you, you're a hero protecting your family. So if you shoot at the motherfucker that came to take your VCR, I know y'all ain't got VCRs no more. What y'all got? Y'all ain't even got Xboxes. Everything's digital. What y'all got in your house that's even worth taking at this point? Somebody, I don't know. Somebody come in your house, try to let me say me, most precious thing under my roof. If you come and try to take my Xbox, my son gave it to me in no backsies. If you come and try to take the Xbox, my son was like, he wants to be PC gaming, so he gave me his Xbox S. So if you come and try to take my Xbox and you're strung out and I come home with my wife after hard day's work and after and then a man's in there, clack, clack, come get her back. People be like, yeah, he's a hero. That's the guns. But if a motherfucker came, if the bank came to evict me and I'm like, I ain't got nowhere else to go. You about to put my family on the street? They'd be like, that nigga was crazy. What the fuck are you doing? Get out. If I go out and I see some poor little black kid, some 13-year-old trying to steal my catalytic converter, clickety clack clack, they'd be like, he had no business trying to take that catalytic converter. But if the repo man come because I didn't pay off a high interest loan, a predatory loan, and takes and I click clack, they be like, that nigga, what you doing? You wrong. When you use that gun to attack someone above you on the hierarchy, the banks, the landlord, sheriff, you're wrong. But somebody below you, the crackhead, the wayward teenager, below you, then you're a hero. So we do need gun reform. There's certain reforms that I advocate for. And I would say another internal reform, not a governmental reform. Another one is stop naming these, because let me tell you one thing about revolution and revolutionary violence does not require guns. You read guerrilla warfare, you read War of the Flea, you read revolutionary warfare. The first thing they tell you in any book that's talking about you're an oppressed person fighting against an entrenched state, an entrenched power, is the first thing they say is no conventional weapons. Do not rely on conventional weapons. Do not rely on conventional weapons. Do not rely on conventional weapons. The number one asset that a revolutionary have, if you look at successful guerrilla fighters, are the people. Being embedded amongst the people, navigating the people. Mao said, the revolutionary is the fish, the people is the water. What makes guerrillas and revolutionaries so deadly is their ability to blend in the environment. You can't tell the black the guerrilla from the black passive person. That's why the United States was like, we got to get the fuck out of Vietnam. We got to get the fuck out of Laos. We got to get fuck out of Iraq. We got to get the fuck out of got to get the fuck out of Afghanistan. We got nukes, we got depleted uranium, we got fucking drones, we got all this shit, and we can't lock this shit down. Two number one assets of any freedom fighter movement: ideology and embedding it with the people. Being connected and supported by the people, and ideology. You'll never see a revolutionary struggle where they say, well, these revolutionaries had the best weapons. They had the most guns. They had guns that were the state, and they had all the guns money could buy. And let me tell you one thing that's separating and preventing us from creating that revolutionary cohesion is all these folks got guns named at each other, thinking the next man want their little shit. And if somebody come take your shit, you kill them. So guns in the black community are counter-revolutionary. I said it. They shouldn't be. They don't have to be, but that's how y'all gun owners are getting down. I've never pointed a gun at another person. I'm proud to say, and I hope I can live the rest of my life and not say that. So many people so proud to brag about what they would do if and what they would do, and I never hear them fantasizing about going up against the system. But if you really want to talk about banging on the system, one thing you can have is deep ties, ideological and social ties within your community is more effective weapon than any gun. A cohesive, uniting, practical, secular ideology. But we got black people out here where the number one cause of death for young black men is gun violence, and black men are out here advocating for more guns, more guns, more guns. It's not practical. You don't have any evidence that saying more guns in our community will make us free. In fact, my great-grandfather, Sonics Bowie, had more guns, shotguns, double barrel, old school, long guns, short guns, and he was a hell of a shot because he raised my grandmother, my great aunt, and my great uncle throughout Jim Crow, Great Depression, all that shit. And he used to go out. Me, I know what possum tastes like. I know what squirrel tastes like. I know what deer tastes like. Did he make raccoon? I don't think I had. They made raccoon, but I don't think. Bush meat. So my grandfather learned to shoot, not he wasn't shooting the KKK. He was out there hunting, because if he don't hunt, then it might be just oatmeal for dinner, hominy grits for dinner with no protein. And it wasn't the fact that he owned guns that protected him from Jim Crow, Missouri. It was the fact that he was in a cohesive and united and coordinated community. It wasn't the guns that freed us. It was our ideology, us taking enough of this shit. I'm mad as hell and I ain't taking no more. And our united organization, our solidarity. If you're unified, like I said, we need to weaponize our solidarity. If we could weaponize black solidarity, I would take that over every gun in the hood. So all that to say is, in this election season, African revolutionaries who are going to be voting socialist, who are going to be voting green or any other progressive third party, African conscious, principled African people, as you engage politics, do not neglect to acknowledge the reforms, student debt relief, environmental policies, more composting, more access to food stamps, housing vouchers, more access to farm to table, community, being able to use food stamps at community gardens, more organic, more vegan, more holistic opportunities for WIC women, for the WIC program. Expansion of access to trade schools, more development of labor unions. There are reforms and policies, and it don't matter. One of the most progressive policy platforms came from the Nixon administration. Rebuilding the EPA. You can say that. I want to overthrow a more ecological government. You don't have to be advocating for progressive and healthy reforms. Does not invalidate your revolutionary desires or organization. You can do both. They are not in conflict. You can engage in harm reduction. You can be in opposition to the CIA funded drug trade. At the same time, you advocate for free needles available to IV addicts. You advocate for more counseling, to train and certify more drug counseling centers. You can do both. So, and I encourage us to do both because that will give us standing. We have to show concern, human empathy for the day-to-day struggles for Black people who have not yet awakened to the necessity and joined the revolution. We're not going to recruit them by telling them their legitimate concerns ain't revolutionary. Their legitimate change ain't going to change nothing. You know, free lunch program. So, I am in principled and strategic opposition against reformists. People who say that if we can get this reform, it will fix anything or everything, or that we'll get this reform and that's the struggle. That's the extent of struggle. I also don't think that reforms or handouts or concessions from the system will necessarily pacify. Most people who are pacified by reforms weren't about to rise up anyway. I don't see evidence of that. So I have a couple of minutes for questions. I started on this a little late, and I didn't get through all my notes and positions, but I think I've articulated. African revolutionaries can work towards reforms and relief and harm reduction as we fight. You can be a revolutionary who is also sympathetic or advocating for reforms, but you do not and should not be a reformist. So you can advocate for reforms to provide some temporary or transient or even fixed relief for the community as you organize to radicalize and liberate the community, but do not ever articulate to our community and be clear to show that our community that just because if Trump sends you a check or Kamala forgives some of your student loans, that it renders you unworthy or takes away the necessity to continue the struggle against the overall system. Until global white hegemony and capitalism have been dismantled and purged from our community, until the ecosystems have been the rape and destruction of ecosystems and the restoration of ecosystems is fully implemented, the struggle continues, even if we get single payer health care. And public universities are once again free or extremely low cost, and women secure their reproductive rights again. The struggle continues. I struggled when abortion was a right. I struggled when abortion rights were removed, and when I will also give support, advocacy, and a voice to that struggle. And it surprised me that I haven't spoken about this very much before, but I thought this was understood. But now this election cycle, I got so-called revolutionaries talking like, oh, the day-to-day pedestrian concerns of the people don't matter. All that matters is revolutionary. And I'm like, fine. If you're in open combat, if you're in open revolt against the system, then you're exempt from this conversation. Like people that are rising up and in open revolt currently, at that, if you're that advanced in the struggle, even that book, is this the, yeah, this is in this book. I'm gonna cover up his name because I'm not the biggest fan of this guy anymore. But this book, he talks about there were people in the struggle who were blowing up dams, environmentalists, radical environmentalists, who were blowing up dams and tearing down cellular towers. They were engaged in open warfare against multinational corporations in the state. And they started coming up against people who were trying to provide relief. So because of the dams and corporate agriculture, there were people who were hungry. There were people whose land was contaminated. There were people who were having their land seized illegally, and there's people trying to reclaim and help them secure the land and fight against eminent domain. And so the people who were doing warfare bumped up against the people who were doing reform. And basically he said, the fight, both of you have the same enemy. You just have different stages of struggles and different approaches. And so the reformers shouldn't say, well, don't blow up the dam because you're going to flood the people down here. And he say, well, you as a reformist, if you're in an environment where the revolution is proceeding at that level, you gotta, your job is not necessarily to stop the dam. Your job is to help the people expedite their movement out of the floodplain. So depending on where the revolutionaries are, the reformers, not the reformists. The reformists are status quo. They are the enemy. Reformers are not inherently the enemy. And I've explained the difference between reformers and reformists. You have to adjust your reforms to accommodate the system. You can fight to abolish the prison system at the same time you fight for the rights of prisoners. George Jackson did that. At the same time George Jackson was preparing and organizing an armed revolt, he was also advocating for prisoner rights. And the whole prisoner rights movement after the Day of the Dragon, after his uprising, his failed revolution, and I wouldn't even say he failed because his name rings out. I've read him. As a sister I knew in college, she gave me my first Soledad brother, and later I got a Blood in My Eye, and I passed that book on to my children. So George Jackson lives, coming out of Black August. But if you read where he was talking about his movements in the prison, he was fighting against this establishment while advocating for rights of people. So he was engaged in advocating and fighting for reforms and revolution. That's it. It's I have to go. Please share. Shout out to my Patreons. Wouldn't be here without you. The support has waned, which I expect the support wane. I've been absent, but I'm back now. So I hope that as I have returned, the support will return. The Rational Radicals are Wednesday night on the Rational Radicals. On the other station, AWO, we didn't got up. So we're building up this other collaborative station. Let me see. So go and subscribe if you're not subscribed to the collaborative station. You have to put in the search engine African World Order, all one word. But let's see. Please go subscribe if you want to see Rational Radicals and some of our more Skip Coon and his wonderful videos, music and stuff. This is the African. We're at 1,000 subscribers pretty fast. This is the African World Order. You want to see Rational Radicals, you go to the homepage and click over to live, and these are the few shows that we have. Skip Coon's Listening Party, Idiocracy. That was our last Rational Radical discussion. And in the next couple of weeks, we're going to go over line by line the Democratic and Republican and Green Party and Socialist Party platforms. So we're going to review the platforms of the four candidates party. I'm hoping we can get through two parties in one discussion, but we never do. We fail genuinely. But we're going to do it the best. We're going to discuss the existing platforms. We're going to talk about whether or not one or both of the parties are really sincere in the platform and all that. So go subscribe to African World Order, Revolutionary Pan-African Perspective, just like here, but this is where we do our collaborative stuff. So come through. I'm still talking. I think we've reached some type of common ground and agreement with EYL. So EYL will return to African World Order, hopefully sooner than later. Like I said, we are. I got some positive news from Skip about the EYL situation. So hopefully I'll have some good news, or even great news, or I'll have some news forthwith. So. But that's still, like I said, I've finally heard something after some rough patches. I've heard some positive feedback this evening just before coming on. So EYL, to be announced. Rational Radicals Wednesday, 7 p.m. on the African World Order stage, and Skip and I will be discussing the platforms of the various parties. Maybe we'll do a mainstream party, third party, mainstream party, third party. Chop it up like that, and we'll see what they're promising us. And we all know once they get elected, it's a whole different story. But we're also going to talk about the potential, saying, hey, is this a viable policy? Is it likely this is a lie, or this is likely to be implemented in full or something? So it's going to be an interesting discussion for election season. I hope you're registered. I hope you got an idea, whatever other bullshit the Republicans trying to do to disenfranchise you. Go vote, and don't just focus on the president. Down ballot is important. Politics, all politics is local. I'm sorry we didn't make time for Q&A. I'll make sure Skip is better, more good at keeping time. So we always make time on African World Order. There's always Q&A. I don't think we've missed the Q&A session once, unlike here. But again, I appreciate y'all, and I will see y'all next Monday on the BroDiallo show. A lot more to come, a lot more to discuss, and I do appreciate you. Again, like, share, subscribe. You can Cash App or one-time Venmo, one-time donation. You can become an ongoing supporter through Patreon. Did I cover all the bases? Is that everything? All right. So good night. Allies.